Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the New York GM Norm Round Robin. It's the third round, and in this round, I'm playing against the top seed, Alexander Lenderman. Now, Lenderman is like 2640. He recently had a really good run at the U.S. Championships. Super strong player, and he's on 2 out of 2. I've got 1.5 out of 2 myself. Before the game, I really didn't do a whole lot of preparing because he's pretty unpredictable. I was just sort of going to figure out over the board. But I told myself that if he went for d4, d5, I was going to play the London. And the reason is I did not really want to go into any sort of Queen's Gambit accepted lines. The point being that I don't have a sharp weapon against it just yet. So I wasn't really comfortable playing this kind of like main line position with e6 and a6, c5. I just don't have a huge amount of experience, and I was like, I'm not gonna wing like some QGA or something. So I was like, you know what? Against d4 knight f6, we're gonna play c4 e6, and against d5, we're gonna go London. So it's like, all right, London. And my logic was that it's a solid opening. And he's going to have to, at some point, create some imbalance. So we're both going to get some chances. And that's exactly what happened. He played the main line, which is c5, e3, knight c6, knight d2. And he went for e6. I mean, I saw games where he had taken on d4 and then played bishop f5. He also could just play e6, bishop d6, and queen c7 without playing the move knight c6. He chooses to go for this. And in this position, rather than developing his bishop, he takes immediately on d4. This became popular when Wesley So played it against Anish Giri in some tournament like 4 or 5 years ago. And the point is that white takes with the e-pawn because that's better, because taking with the c-pawn makes no sense. Then your knight should be there if the structure is symmetrical. And then you play knight h5. And this is a very... how should I say? This was not surprising for me to see. I was like, oh, okay, well, there you go. He is committing to playing this variation. Now, what I know about this variation is the fact that this knight will be targeted by the queen once the bishop moves out of the way. White can play bishop g5 here and bait black into playing the move f6, which is what happened in that game between Wesley and Anish. And then you go back and you say, okay, I've kind of weakened your structure. There's also just immediately going back. Now, I know that bishop e3 is the best move. It's the highest scoring move, so I play bishop e3. And here, I thought for a second, because I know the move is knight e5, targeting this. But rather, here, I actually had my first think of the game. I was really trying to remember what the critical plans were for white. And that's kind of the drawback of potentially going for London. It's not what I normally play, so it's not the freshest thing in my memory. Now, there is a line here that was played by GothamChess versus Hikaru Nakamura in 2017, g4, and when you kick the knight back, you then play h4 as well. Now, black can equalize here. This used to be considered a bit dangerous. Like knight takes e5, there's a pawn sacrifice line here. White sacrifices a pawn and then goes here. Hikaru showed how to equalize here without really any problems. I believe it went like knight, he castled or something. And Gata didn't get a great position because I think something like this happened. Hikaru just sacked the pawn back on d4. But I think instead of knight f3, I think this is considered pretty decent for white. But the truth is, I didn't remember what to do after h5, which is a move, and it's a very good move, h4, h5. There's like bishop g5, queen c7, queen b6, I mean, bishop back to e7. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to go for g4 and h4 if I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I mean, that's kind of silly. So I was like, I know there's systems where you can bring this knight back to d3, because I've played this line with black myself. And this gets very annoying when white just doesn't play any games with you and just kind of like develops this bishop somehow. And I thought about doing it like this, but then I was like, why don't we just get a little forward momentum with the bishop? So we're going to play bishop b5. If he plays bishop to d7, I'm just going to take it. So I'm just going to have 2 bishops. I can snag the bishop pair and I'm going to be very happy. So he played queen c7. At this point, again, I'm still thinking about, maybe bringing the knight back, and maybe, transferring this knight forward to defend this. I'm also thinking about maybe playing g4, maybe playing f4, kind of just like locking this in. The reason I didn't beeline for f4 is because I was like, well, he can kind of reroute the knight to f5, which is sort of what he wants to do anyway. And then, I don't know, maybe I have to go back. I don't know, maybe I can give up the bishop. Whatever, I'm thinking on my own. And then I get an idea. And I'm like, you know what? Him moving his queen to c7 removes guards of these dark squares. And I have an interesting idea. My interesting idea is to leave my knight here and to put my queen on f3. The point is that if he castles, and let's say I play like, bishop h6, g4, queen f6, I'm coming in with my pieces. Also, if I play queen f3, he really can't do this, because even though I can't play bishop d4 right now, I can definitely play it once I castle, and so I'm gonna take and play bishop d4. I mean, his position looks really dangerous. So I was like, all right, do I play queen f3 and then g4, or do I play g4, knight g7, and queen f3 with the idea to come to f6? And I'm like, you know what? Let's go g4 and queen f3. And I play queen f3 and I press the clock, and I forget a rule of chess. I forget that he can just castle. And it's worse than that. It's not just castles. It's f6 is now a problem. f5 is now a problem. I'm sitting there like, I just forgot he could, like... Now, if I had done this in a different move order, like I didn't play g4, I played queen f3, I could have maybe played knight back first, and then, my knight's not a target anymore, and then we can play g4, h4, and, I was thinking I'll castle queenside, obviously, and pawn storm. But I just did it this way, and I think in my mind, I was like, I would play queen f6, or maybe I would take and play queen f6, and try to play, like, bishop h6, but he just goes knight e8. Like, I just totally forgot that I can't do this. And then if I come back, I mean, f6, e5. He just completely steamrolls me in the other direction. Like, I just played queen. I'm like, what am I doing? Oh, my God. But I was like, okay, let's refocus. We're going to have a worse position. Let's stabilize. Now, the engine actually thinks I should just go all out. It thinks that this knight can be taken. So, for example, take, and I'll play like h5. You know what? Maybe I would have considered h4, but I had already thought that I had messed this up, so I was like, all right, let's back up to d3. We're going to get the knight out of the middle of the board. The problem is that now it's not f6, which is a problem. He just goes f5. f5 is a problem because he's threatening two things. Number one, f4 to trap my bishop. Number two, let's say I give my bishop some breathing room, he's going to take. And if I take, then here comes this bishop, and I'm in serious trouble. So I take on f5. He responds by capturing with a knight, and I have to move my queen out of the way, or else the rook is going to get hit. And then he plays bishop d7. Now, at this point, I'm like, okay, I think bishop d7 is maybe slightly inaccurate. I was pretty worried that he could, like, blow up the position, like e5 or something. But he played bishop d7. I'm like, okay, well, if I take this knight, something like this, and then play like knight f3, right? And then try to get here. I was like, this looks nice, but he can go bishop b5. And it's just, bishop is just so annoying. Like, I don't know what, I mean, long castle is kind of miserable. I mean, I can't get to e5. So I'm like, okay. He has another threat. The threat is knight takes d4 to attack my queen. And if I take back, I'm going to lose this bishop, right? Yeah, I mean, even if I play bishop a4, knight takes d4. I'm like, okay, easy. I'm going to play knight to f3. He doesn't have knight takes d4 anymore. Why? Because after I play knight f3, he's going to take on d4. I'm going to take with the knight, guarding the bishop. He's going to take a second time. I'm going to take. He's going to take. And I am going to take the pawn with check. Because when everything clears out, my bishop is there. The bishop is there. So it doesn't guard this pawn anymore. So here, 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 check. rook f7, and in that position, my knight is hanging, but I can just play long castles. And then my bishop on d4, very strong. He can play rook e8 attacking my queen. I would just come back to h3. Seems like I've stabilized. That's a lot for you to kind of realize. I'm just telling you the way it looks for me. I got to queen h3, right? So I played knight f3. And then he played this move. And I was like, did I just F this up real bad? Because I just calculated the whole line and said why he shouldn't play this move. And here he goes playing this move. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I take, he takes, I take, he takes, I take, he goes here. And I have only one move, which is long castle. And then I realize I messed up. But it's so hard to see how I messed up 6 moves ago. Because after rook e8, queen h3, well, when he played rook e8, I realized where the problem was. And the thing is, I can't take this because I thought that, you know, I don't want to lose my rook. I mean, maybe I can play this endgame, but I was like, what am I doing? I mean, why would I lose the material? I realized how black wins here. Black has one winning plan, basically. I mean, he can apply pressure in multiple ways, but not over here. Like, if he applies pressure here, I play rook g1, and I'm actually threatening to take myself. So I actually thought I was there. Like, I'm like, oh, queen h3, I've stabilized, or, you know, in my mind. But I didn't. Black to play and win, or at least get a winning position. It's kind of brutal. I was only looking at forward movement, you know, over here with the rooks. Turns out, you know, it's not about taking this or anything. He goes back. He attacks my queen and reroutes his bishop to this side of the board. Completely missed that when I played knight f3. I mean, I just was like, you know, he can take and play queen c4 and whatever. And then he played, and I realized, I was like, uh-oh, well, this is not good. And then he, you know, I thought he was going to play bishop f5 first. And bishop f5 still maybe lets me take this pawn. And okay, I get to go for this variation where I lose the rook. But he played queen c4. And I realized that after this, I'm in some serious trouble. I can barely defend myself. Like, this can only be defended with the king. Well, I mean, rook d2, bishop f5 is very bad. Like, if I play king b2, now here comes the rook. So obviously, what I meant to say was not it can only be defended. I meant it's late. It's late. I meant to say it cannot be defended by the king because the rook comes in. It can only be defended, what I thought was with the queen. I was like, it can only be defended with the queen. And I'm like, I'm going to put my knight on e5. And then he just did this anyway. And I was like, yo, if I play knight e5, which is what I did in the game, he just plays bishop e4. And I resigned. Because if I play queen f2, he can take my rook and then take my knight. And I'm pinned. If I play queen e2, it's a free queen. If I play queen d2, it's like a crisscross applesauce, mate. And if I play queen b2, he just wins my queen. So, what the hell happened in this game? Number one, I decided not to play a queen's gambit because I was a little bit concerned with a queen's gambit accepted. This classical variation. I don't understand these positions that well. And to be honest with you, you know, the Queen's Gambit accepted is where I'm feeling a little bit rough around the edges right now. So if any of my future opponents in this tournament want to play, you know, the Queen's Gambit accepted, please do. Except now I'm going to do some serious homework on it. I like psyched myself out from playing the Queen's Gambit accepted and instead went for a London. But it turned out that, you know, in the critical line of the London system, I didn't remember any of the theory. And I firmly believe that I took this approach to this game because of the strength of my opponent. I hate to say it, but it's true. I think if I was playing a 2300, I would not forget about short castles. But that's just how it goes sometimes. Let's put it this way. I played this game as if right before the round, someone took a baseball bat and just hit me in the head with it. Like, I really felt like I was playing this game like I had like some sort of brain damage. I mean, I say that sometimes, but like, I psyched myself out of the opening. I proceed to still incorrectly play something in the opening, you know, because I like decided to play it thinking it would be easier to play than that other thing. And then I miss like everything. I mean, just simply everything. Like don't even look for h4. Completely missed that the bishop d7, and then I just get out calculated. That's unfortunate. We had like one critical moment, and I decided that I was completely fine in the position after knight takes d4, and he calculated it more accurately than me because he's 2640 GM, and I lost. Am I upset about this game? No, and that's kind of why it's bad. It's a little bit scary because it's almost like I expected the result, and I'm sort of like, well, yeah, and that's something that I have to fight, but one game at a time. And I'm back home. I'm drinking my apple juice. I'm hanging out with Lucy, so I'm feeling good still. Honestly, I'm glad I got the one bad game of the tournament out of the way. And now we can, we can play good chess tomorrow, and I'm gonna win some games tomorrow. So it's bedtime. I hope you enjoyed. And by the way, you can actually learn to play the London better than I did in this game by getting the London course, the D4 Dynamite course, on my website for 33% off. And if I had studied it before the round, maybe I would have, But instead, I laid in bed and I just got my energy because 2 games a day is just so brutal. And then commuting in New York City, oh my God, it's just the worst. Anyway, see you all for day number 3 tomorrow and rounds number 4 and 5. And you're amazing. Get out of here, though.